All right. Thanks everybody for letting us take a break. We have the another moose presentation, factors limiting moose population growth, and we have Dr. Tyler, who you met yesterday if you were here, and then Aaron Johnson from KBIC. So thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thanks. Turn it on to green. Thanks for having us. My name is Todd Petrillia. I'm a Wildlife Research Specialist with Wildlife Division.
And I'm Erin Johnston, the Wildlife and Habitat Manager for the Keweenaw Bay Indian Community in their Natural Resources Department.
So I'm going to be talking about our new research project that you got to all witness with the drone demonstration yesterday. And this is a collaborative project between DNR and KBIC and Northern Michigan University as well. So we have a graduate student who's working on this project looking at factors limiting moose population growth in the Western Upper Peninsula. But before we jump into the particulars of the project, there we go. Oh, the video didn't play. Okay. Well, you don't get to see a video of a bull moose, prime bull moose in the UP. But basically, what I just wanted to mention is that moose are a unique species that we have a great opportunity to have here in the Upper Peninsula. And so, briefly, I just want to quick go through kind of the history of moose in Michigan and why it's such a unique thing that we get to have moose in Michigan here today. So moose are a native species to Michigan, both the Upper Peninsula and Northern Lower Peninsula. But they were extirpated from the Lower Peninsula in the 1880s, and numbers at that time were declining in the UP. They did receive full protection in 1889, and there was the first attempt to reintroduce moose after their extirpation in the 1930s. Ultimately, that reintroduction effort failed, and so we went in Michigan for quite a period with no moose on our landscape, actually. Then there were discussions in the 1980s about moose reintroduction, and we had some biologists at the time look at the habitat, and you saw from Chad's presentation earlier where we thought we could sustain moose populations in Michigan. And really the goal here is just to say, let's bring this native species back onto the landscape. Let's have a self-sustaining population of free-ranging moose. And as you heard Shannon mention earlier, there was quite an optimistic objective. Let's have 1,000 moose back on the landscape by the year 2000. And so this was done with the famed moose lift, 29 moose brought in 85 and 30 moose in 87. And this is the same map you saw earlier from Chad. He laid a lot of the groundwork, but basically that moose lift happened where the star was the Michigamme Highlands, and that's where our core population is today. And there's also predicted to be some high quality moose habitat in the east end, though as Chad also mentioned, that population never really took off, though we do have some immigration from Ontario still today with moose exchange back and forth between the UP and Canada. So this is that map of really what Chad showed earlier, that first look of where are moose in the UP today. And as you can see, our core range is still certainly our core area where most of our moose occur, though we are seeing expansion into new areas of the Upper Peninsula, letting us know that there is more suitable habitat across the UP for moose. But specifically, the data we have historically is for our core moose range, and that's really where this study takes place, is in our core moose range, focused on the population that has been stagnating in growth there over the past decade. And so you saw from Chad's presentation, this is really the data that we had leading up to the proposal of this project, is that our moose population had grown steadily through the 80s and 90s into the 2000s and then really stagnated. And what you're observing here is the growth of that population. So we're seeing 10% growth the last time we had moose collar, which is a really healthy moose population. Sometime around 2010, that population stagnated. And really over the last decade, we have not seen any substantial growth. And so the question is why, right? We can get from our biennial aerial survey, we can get information about what is the direction in that population over time. But it's hard to exactly understand what's maybe driving this factor. Now, two things that we do look at that Chad mentioned is our bull to cow ratio and our calf to cow ratio. So what you're seeing here is a slight decline potentially over time in our bull to cow ratio. That could indicate that pregnancy rates maybe aren't as high as they need to be. You're seeing a decline in calf to cow ratio. That could indicate that you're not recruiting as many calves into that population to grow that population over time. The challenge is we don't know what would necessarily be driving that. We can't say with an aerial survey that for sure we have fewer bulls, maybe because bull survival is lesser, or do we have fewer calves because calf survival is lesser, or is pregnancy lesser? So we have a lot of questions in what's limiting that population growth. And that's really where we need to take the next step of let's move from monitoring to active research. And so where do we go from here? We have a lot of questions, and we have concern from internal DNR staff. We have concern from the CACs. Both of the CACs suggested that we need to know more about why is our moose population not growing. We also started going to the North American Moose Conference, where we had discussions with KBIC that really kicked this off, and found out that there were also concerns from KBIC about why our moose population was not growing. And so what do? We wanted to join in a collaboration and say, we both have these concerns. Why do we want to collaborate? Because we can support common goals. We can reduce redundancy so we can stretch those dollars further and pool resources across people with different expertise to reach common goals.
So our initial collaboration research objectives really started out with obviously wanting to capture and collar, GPS collar, in this case moose, both bulls, cows, and young of the year or calves at that time, and starting in January 2025 with hopes of carrying this project forward. Our second objective was to estimate adult moose vital rates, so looking at, as Tyler just said, survival, and if they are dying, how are they dying, why are they dying? Looking at pregnancy rates to have a better understanding of calf production and in our adult female moose, and also looking at immigration and dispersal rates. And lastly, looking at the calf survival. So if we know our calves are getting pregnant and then they're having babies, are they surviving to contribute to the population? And we've been doing that with birth site monitoring. And although we've had discussions about mortality site investigation with detection dogs, we did not implement that in 2025. But I believe Tyler and Aaron are having conversations with individuals who have detection dogs to see if we can employ that in the coming years of the project, as we hope to increase our sample size from 20 moose to 50 or 60 moose. Obviously, that's going to increase time and energy to be out on the landscape monitoring their moose, and so having more teams of people and more ways, more tools in our toolbox to get out there. And just want to note that funding in 2026 is coming through the DNR and some other supporters, but KBIC has secured funding for 2027 and 2028 through GLRI, through money that is specifically available to tribes. We have secured $684,000 to support 2 years of the project and bring on a second graduate student. So we are very committed to this project and to this collaboration. So the collaring in 2025 was 20 moose. We did 50 bulls, 10 cows, and 5 young of the year. And I just want to take this moment to really shine a light on how amazing the DNR staff did in preparing for this event. We collared 20 moose in a day and a half, and there were a lot of moving parts, including physically people moving. And we had 4 staff from KBIC participating, and the way our staff and their staff just seamlessly integrated together to get this work done was really amazing. This project has been so far a highlight of my career. I just wanted to share that with you all of how awesome just the NRC staff work and getting all the logistics together for an activity like this. And so while we were collaring, we were also collecting biological samples. So looking at parasite, fecal, and blood, and so that we could get an overall understanding of the general health of the animals that we were handling. And so to collar, I guess I should step back, sorry, I have my notes and I'm not following them. We were lucky that, as you just heard, the aerial survey took place just weeks before we were doing this capture event, so that we had an understanding of more or less where the moose were hanging out. But the airplanes were back up in the air looking for the moose, and then helicopters were going out to dart the moose by helicopter, and then the helicopters were either coming back to take two-person teams out to the moose, or we had teams with snowmobiles trying to access the moose as well. And one thing we're looking to add for 2026, since Dr. Scott Larson is now on staff with the state as a veterinarian, and interested in bringing in the ultrasound equipment to see if what we can, one, confirm pregnancy right on site, but also with the blood sample, we're only able to determine that the cow is pregnant, but not if she's having multiples. And the ultrasound would allow us to know if, when we start doing calf monitoring, if we should be, or birth monitoring, if we should be looking for 1 or 2 calves.
The darted moose, do you read the collared moose, I should say? Do you re-dart them every year and then take like stats on them?
Tyler, I'm going to defer to you. I believe we're not going to, we were going to switch out calf collars. That was the intention, but not re-dart the adult moose.
And so how long does the collar last generally?
You led right into my next slide. Thank you. Yeah, so the GPS collars that are on the moose right now give off a location every 1 hour, and at that rate they should last somewhere between 7 and 10 years. But Tyler's probably a better person to answer questions about, is that a true life of a collar? They have varying success, I think, just on animals. And these are, I think, an old location number at this point. This is probably almost a month old. But you can see we're getting a significant number of locations for our animals, which is wonderful. And as some of you got to see yesterday, you got to visit with the cow that's been most interesting to us, that took off and went 50 miles away from the winter range up near the Keweenaw Peninsula, and is successfully raising another calf and still has her 2 young of the year in the area. There we go. So switching into calf production, so of the cows that were captured, so 8 of them were pregnant, and able to confirm that all 8 gave birth. 5 of those cows gave birth to single calves, and 3 of them had twins, which is pretty awesome to see. And before calving season started, the collars were switched on the cows to give off a location every 30 minutes, because they change their behavior when they're getting ready to give birth. If they have a calf from the previous year, they will chase that calf off, and then they tend to move to a different location and then kind of localize. And so Tyler and Aaron were monitoring, Aaron Largent were monitoring that, and were able to determine when the cows had given birth. So the first cow gave birth on May 10th, and the last cow, which is the cow that you guys got to visit yesterday, gave birth on June 19th, which is a median birth rate of around May 17th. And this gives us about peak rut here in Michigan, like late September, early October, kind of right now. So once we confirmed birth, one thing I do want to, I guess, mention that I failed to on that, there we go, is the use of the drone that you all got to see yesterday, or many of you got to see yesterday. So that was not really initially discussed when we talked about the project and the technology and the tools that we would use to monitor. But we have a drone operator through KVAC and drones available to us. And so started using that technology, realized it was a really amazing way that we could very non-invasively check on these cows and calves and will continue to do so. Aaron Largent now is certified to do that, or licensed to do that, and will continue to participate and use the drone as much as we can for this project in the future. So for survival monitoring, Aaron and Kyle have been conducting monthly drone flights on the newborn calves, and I believe it's meant to continue basically till we, indefinitely. I don't know if there's going to be a cutoff point. So right now we're aware of 8 of 11 newborn calves still alive, and I'll tell you more about that shortly. And we're getting daily updates on movements and survival of the yearlings. And so we are, at this time, we have 3 of 5 yearling moose still alive, 9 of 10 of the female moose still alive, and 5 of 5 of the male moose are still alive at this time. And just really awesome drone video here of a mama and her twins out foraging. So to walk through the mortalities real quickly, GPS data from female 2501. So what we're able to look at, or I shouldn't say we, it's mostly Aaron and Tyler checking on these. You can see movement patterns with the females. So they make a movement when they're going to give birth, and then they typically localize in that area for 7 to 10 days after they've given birth. And what we've learned from talking with researchers out of Minnesota is that if there's a disturbance after birth, there you can see movements of the female, and in this case, this female moved away from the birth site, came back, moved away from the birth site, and so that was an indication to Tyler and Aaron that something may have disrupted her after she gave birth. And so they were able to get out into the field and confirm that a black bear had killed that calf at birth. And that was determined based on basically how they consume the animal and what they leave behind. And they were able to determine that the calf was alive when it was killed. Before, obviously, it was killed by that it wasn't a stillbirth, basically, that there was hemorrhaging, so the calf was alive. So our young of year, our first mortality was March 15th. This was a young female that had been collared, and upon initial investigation, it was really hard to tell, what had potentially happened. There was really no signs of predation or immediate trauma. Upon, skinning out the animal and kind of further investigating the carcass, they were able to see that there were maybe some signs that something had happened, and then upon necropsy it showed that there was hemorrhaging in the left mandible and sinuses and brain, and that there was a fracture in the nasal bone. So some type of trauma happened to this young female that potentially or did lead to her death. At time of death, femur fat content was 64%, which is indicative of an animal in good health. And the second young of year that we lost was in April, and this was the only male young of year that was collared during the project in 2025, and it was confirmed a wolf predation. So there's collared wolf data from the area. Tyler and Aaron were able to look at the collared data from the wolf and the collared data from the moose and determine that it was likely a wolf predation. And the femur fat on that animal was also about 60%, indicating that he was in good health at time of death. Let me go too far. Oh, no. So to the point of the question that came up during Chad Stewart's presentation, there was a question about vehicle collisions and are we concerned about this? Absolutely. We did lose one of our collared cows to a vehicle collision on June 18th, and additionally assume her calves were lost, so she had twins. They were not located on site and too young to survive on their own. So although it was, it's really a death of 3 moose for this one vehicle collision. So the internal organs and the head were sent to the disease lab as per usual necropsy. And then noting here too, to answer the question previously about how many moose have been killed. And so since 2022, 60 moose that are not collared have been struck and killed by vehicle collisions. So definitely something of concern and something we will be looking into and exploring options for how we can maybe raise awareness, or because as you can see from the map, you can see there's kind of some hot spots or where these are. And one thing I would like to note since I'm here is that although these animals have been hit, it has led to the opportunity for the Keweenaw Bay Indian community to salvage these moose carcasses. And we have been able to, we've been called 12 times for moose. 7 of those 12 have been salvageable. KBIC has salvaged 5 of those for approximately 700 pounds of meat towards our community. So with that, I will say thank you. I will encourage you all to continue to follow our project here, where there are quarterly updates shared. And are there any questions?
Any questions or discussion? Yes.
I have a question. Well, comment question. Amazing project. Thank you for the presentation. Had a good chance to chat with Tyler and Aaron yesterday, and your pilot, Kyle. It was great. And just thanks for that. Thanks for giving us that, and staff who helped arrange it, to give us that opportunity to see it. It's really incredible. You mentioned Keweenaw Bay's participation in this multi-year study, including the next phase of funding through GLRI funds, which is also really cool. I'm interested in hearing more about that. Do you have plans for how those funds are going to be deployed? You mentioned additional graduate students, or can you describe the type of work that those students are going to be doing, or how is that going to enhance your already wonderful project?
Yeah, thank you for that question, and I had a note to mention it and clearly just buzzed right through it, but we are really interested in the habitat component. So I think that would be where we would try to focus that energy, is looking at the habitat. Once we have the collar, a larger sample size, and we can look at where these moose are, what they're doing, and get that understanding of habitat that they're using throughout the year for different life needs. And then that potentially leading to some implications for forest management.
Any other questions, discussion?
Thank you very much. Thank you, guys. Last item on the director's report. Batman's coming up. This is John Depew. Going to chat with us about white nose syndrome. I think each year that we do come up here, he gives an update so folks know where we're at. So welcome, John.
Oh, hey, thanks for having me, and welcome to arguably the best part of the state. I might be biased, but I live a few blocks from where we're sitting now, so take with you and keep this in mind. The winters are long, the snow is deep, and there's lots of mosquitoes in the summer, so before you move up, just keep that in mind. Yeah, thanks for having me. We're kind of switching gears on species, and these are, again, a little bit biased, but some of the most fascinating and unique species we have in the state of Michigan. So I'm going to talk about bats and the status of white nose syndrome and conservation efforts that the Michigan DNR is doing to help. So just a little bit of background. We have 9 species of bats in Michigan. They eat insects. They're primarily nocturnal or diurnal, so you'll see them a lot in the evening. As we talked about a lot of times growing up, you'll see them fishing. Hopefully we're starting to see that more. If you're fishing in the evening, you'll start seeing them flying around. That's what we're trying to do. 2 of the species here in Michigan, Indiana bat and northern long-eared bats, are federally endangered. All have legal protection here in Michigan. We have 4 species, well, we have 5 species on the state T&E list. Interestingly, bats are long-lived. We have data from a big brown bat that is now over 30 years old, which is pretty cool for a very small mammal, right? So long-lived species. So if I don't convince you how fascinating, cool, and amazing these species are, I'm going to try to tell you, at least real quick here, how important they are to our ecosystems and to our human health and to what we eat. So, extremely important, as we know, bats eat metric tons of insects, not individually, but as a whole. They eat a lot of agricultural pests. So some research in Science Magazine, peer-reviewed literature, to the tune of $3.7 to $50 billion in pest control services for agriculture annually. That's about $74 per farmed acre per year in Michigan. That's the insects that they're eating. The farmers don't have to add pesticides, so really important. Follow-up study, due to the disease white nose syndrome, we'll get into, populations have declined of several species. And in those heavy agricultural areas, some research has been done to show that farmers have had to add more pesticides. And in those counties where there's more pesticides added, there have been impacts and increase in infant mortality. So this is like a direct link to human health. It's kind of scary. So bats are extremely important. What we don't have quantified is the impact on, here in the UP, an extremely important economic resource is timber. We do know that bats eat insects that can cause disease outbreaks on trees. We just don't have peer literature to talk about it, but probably some very similar impacts that bats can have on insects that cause outbreaks. So as I mentioned, and you probably are aware, the disease white nose syndrome has caused precipitous declines in bat populations across North America. Interestingly, the disease is caused by a fungus, Pseudogymnastic destructans. When I give college lectures, I make them have a little pop quiz. I guess I won't do that today. We're out of time for that, so we'll save that for later. But the disease, the fungus, eats away at their organs and their tissues. It causes energy depletion. So when bats go into hibernation in another couple weeks here, like that's for the most part the last food that they've eaten until the end of March, early April. So you can imagine when the disease irritates the bats, starts attacking the organs, the bats come out of torpor, and then they run out of energy, fat reserves, and then they go looking for insects in February, and I can tell you up here that's a tough thing to do. So the disease impacts a whole suite of species that hibernate in caves, so specifically here in Michigan, little brown bats, northern long-eared bats, tricolored bats. And it does impact big brown bats. Individuals will die from the fungus, but the population doesn't see disease level effects. So we're not seeing a decrease in big brown bat populations in Michigan or across North America. But certainly with little brown bats and northern long-ears, which is the precipitous for the Fish and Wildlife Service, listing them as an endangered species. So in Michigan, we're in our 12th year of infection. At this point, all sites, hibernacula, they're mostly using abandoned mines in Michigan, have the presence of the fungus that causes the disease. We know this. There are varying levels because we sample, and you can see in this photo, the disease was named after what it looks like. There's white fungus on its nose, and there's white fungus on its forearms. Luckily, we had some commissioners out yesterday, which was it was cool, very cool, and those who missed out, get in contact with me. Happy to take you out anytime to go see bats underground. But we didn't see any fungus on bats, which I wouldn't expect this early, but it's still nice to see clean bats when we go underground. So the impacts of the disease have been severe. So when we compare pre and post white nose infection, we've had an 89% decline in most of our sites. You can see on this graph, we're looking at the number of myotis counted per site, and we do that because some years we have sites that have, well, pre-white nose anyway, 50,000 bats, 30,000 bats. But we also have sites that have 100 bats or 30 bats or 400 bats. So anyway, the point of this is our populations have bottomed out. The bottom has started to stabilize, and in some sites we're starting to see very small increase in the numbers of bats coming back. It's nowhere near our pre-white nose numbers, For example, we have sites that we were in yesterday that pre-white nose had 25 to 30,000 bats in it. Last year there was 2,100. We have sites that have 19,000 bats, at the lowest 92 bats, and up to 1,400, 1,600 bats in now. So we're making some progress. We're not there yet, but we're working on it. An interesting thing to point out here, like I said, most of our sites the bats hibernate in are abandoned mines. And a lot of our mines have parallel shafts and airflow and draft through them, and so they are colder. And those sites we have learned through our work that they have higher survival. So in working with other colleagues across the country in lab settings, the colder temperatures suppress the growth of the fungus that causes the disease. So a couple years ago, well, we'll get to that here. Fortunately here at the Michigan DNR, we get to do a lot of work to try to help our bats. We continue to do population monitoring both in the summer and in the winter. We do look at the disease loads, so the amount of PD in the site on the bats and in each site. We protect critical hibernacula, which is always a challenge, so we build these bat-friendly gates. We work with partners to help build these bat-friendly gates, and you can see in this picture there's a rung missing. This is kind of deep underground and hard to get to, and the rock hounds still find their way in there with machines that can cut through quarter-inch steel, so we're constantly trying to repair these things to keep people out. Because people going in the winter will cause a disturbance, and repeated disturbances could kill the bats. We participate in a number of outreach and education. I think it's real important, so the kids and folks know how important bats are. Right? It's kind of a vision I have. So I talk to school groups. We do, get on. Well, I'm a very popular guy this time of year between Halloween and now. And other times of year, people kind of want to talk to me, but really now my phone's ringing and my email. Can you come talk to us? So I try as much as I can. We were the initiated and have implemented a bat habitat conservation plan, which I'll talk about. And all of this work is done with partners. So we work with Aaron and KBIC folks doing summer mist netting and a number of other tribes throughout the state for summer bat work, which is great. Like we worked with yesterday, Matt Portfleet and private landowners and private mine owners. They allow us to come in and count bats on their site. They're happy sometimes to have us install gates, bat-friendly gates on their mines. But without these partnerships and the expertise of others, we couldn't get this done. So as I mentioned, the colder sites have higher survival rates, suppresses the growth of the fungus. So in 2019, I started a project. I naively thought, like, in Michigan, we have a lot, especially up here in the West UP, we have a lot of free cold air. And the naive part was it's not free, it turns out, when you need energy. The idea is we have some sites that are very warm, have a lot of fungus in it, and we know through other research that providing colder areas, the bats will move in and have higher survival rates. So what I want to do is suck cold air in from the outside, cool down a section of mine, and the bats will move to it. When you don't have power to run the fan, then things get creative. It turns out in the West UP along Lake Superior, there's not a lot of solar available to run this fan. So we partnered with Michigan Tech here, our professor here, Dr. Wolf. We have a PhD student working on this. It's a great collaboration. There's a School of Mines here that helps with ventilation. So we have great partners at the Porky State Park. The PRD staff have been amazing to work with. We have a fan going in there. We're doing really cool research to pump cold air in and try to cool the site down. And we're seeing that bats will move to this area that we're cooling. And the cool thing is here's we're doing something artificial here in Michigan, and we're starting to write a guide, kind of landowner's guide on how to help other landowners across North America provide these microclimates at their sites. On the flip side, we have a site that's never been a hibernacula. It's an abandoned mine. Wind whips through this thing, it's very cold. And I had the idea well, maybe if we can cool it, maybe we can warm it, right? If you warm it, will they come? We have a site in southern Michigan called Tippy Dam. The bats hibernate actually in the pour over, it's hollow, they're in the cement structure. there is PD. So the fungus is in that site. The population has not had a decline. They've been in there, the disease has been there for 10 years. There's no been decline in population. It's an anomaly in North America. One of the hypotheses is the temperature profile is helping the bats survive. So we sealed the site up. One of the entrances is that wind was kind of blowing through this site with foam board, as you can see here, and put some temperature logs in it. And in the first season, we have a profile that's very similar to Tippy. So Tippy is in the purple. Our site here, Henwood, is in green. And we had 2 bats show up midwinter last year. We had 2 bats show up, and it was pretty darn ecstatic. It's pretty cool. I assume it's going to take a couple of years for bats to figure this out. And so we've started that. We were in there yesterday, and luckily our foam board has not been destroyed by folks, so I'm pretty excited to see what this season will bring. So it's cool that we have these abandoned mines and we can do some things to help bats here in Michigan. Just want to touch real quickly on the bat HCP. So it covers Indiana, northern long-eared, tricolored, and little brown bats, a mix of currently federally protected species and potential bats that have the potential to be protected federally. It's an agreement that we got in place with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. It's necessary to obtain an incidental take permit, reduces some liability we have for take under the federal ESA, and allows us to continue our forest management activities on state land. And in doing so, we are, part of that habitat conservation plan is we are providing habitat to benefit bats as well. So this plan is for all state lands. However, private landowners are, if they're interested, totally voluntary. We have a program so they can apply and be part of the protections under the HCP. So just real quick, it was signed in March 2023. It's implemented now. Some really cool thing that I think that we're doing here in Michigan it's only happening here in Michigan right now compared to the other Great Lakes states is we have come up with some forestry prescriptions to benefit bats. So this is about 3/4 of a mile from a bat hibernacula, and working with the local foresters, we came up with a harvest essentially that's going to leave trees for bats, provide some sun thermal on the trees that are left behind, and we're pretty excited to see how this turns out. We're now like doing some acoustic work to see before we cut it, and then we'll see what the acoustics look like afterwards. But I'm proud to say that Michigan DNR is moving forward in one of the few states in the Great Lakes states that is like doing a harvest for specifically benefit bats. We have on that private landowner front, we have 3 applicants I'm processing right now, 4 applications. One of the applicants split their land, but for a total of over 500,000 acres. So they're not small applicants. These are big industrial landowner, and I'm working with other landowners and just checked in with a large land manager on our way in today. So I'll be meeting with them next week. Okay, short and sweet. I'm happy to answer any questions if we have time. And thanks for your support. Bats are not high on the list of species in the state, but I think the cool thing is we have a lot of support from admin and from you folks and from the public, and we are like literally leaders in North America and certainly in the Midwest on some of the conservation measures we're putting forth on the ground. So thanks for your support. Time.
Thank you. Mr. Walters?
Yesterday's tour was incredible. Thank you.
I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Very fascinating. Can you describe, as you did yesterday, but for the audience, can white nose syndrome be cleaned, and if so, how?
Yeah, so, that's a good question, right? So can we, eradicate white nose from the landscape in total? Probably not. But one thing that we're trying to do is reduce the spores that cause the disease, so I'll just call it PD. We're working on that with a number of researchers and ourselves. So we've gone in, as I explained yesterday, with some researchers from Western Michigan University and Ball State and using UV when the bats are not there to try to kill off the fungus. Because we know if the bats go into a site that has essentially no fungus or very few fungal spores, it increases their survival rate. We've used chlorine dioxide gas that breaks down into salt and water, so it's okay. And then one of the things that we're doing is those cold temperatures suppress the growth, and over time, the cold temperature doesn't kill the fungus, but it doesn't grow, and then over time, the bacteria actually will eat and kill the fungus. So yeah, I don't think we're ever going to get rid of it across North America, but these really important sites, we're trying to find all kinds of different tools, because one size of one mitigation strategy is not going to work everywhere. When we have sites that have stopes as big as this room, like a UV light's going to be pretty tough. But maybe cooling can work. Chlorine dioxide gas goes in small places, it can work, but also like to fill this room with it would be difficult. So we're kind of like trying to develop as many tools as we can so we can use them all, and sometimes we need to use 2 or 3 different strategies in one site. But yeah, we're trying to do that for sure, because we know it will help increase the survival of bats over winter.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Other questions or comments from commissioners? I would echo, yesterday was excellent. Thank you so much.
Hey, you're welcome. And others that missed out, get in touch with me. I'm happy to take you underground.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks for your time.
That concludes the director's report.
All right, thank you. We're going to move into public appearances, and I'd ask Brooke to, well, before we do that, commissioners, there is a legislative report in your packet. I urge you to read it. We have several items in the legislature that they're working on, and it's important that you have. Oh, all right. We have Stacy's going to come up here and run public appearances and give us our guidelines for public appearances. We're going to move into it at 1:18 this afternoon.
Okay, good afternoon. I'll now read the official NRC timekeeping procedures. For those of you who have signed up either by phone or email by the end of the day last Friday, you'll have 5 minutes to make your presentation. If you have not signed up previously and would like to make a comment today, please see Christy Delstrom, Assistant to the Natural Resource Commission, for a card to complete. You'll be given 3 minutes to make your presentation. When you have 1 minute left, I'll hold up the 1 minute sign. When your time has run out, I will hold up the time please sign, and we ask that you kindly bring your comments to a close.
And with that, I'm going to call up Kristen Neva. And as she's coming up here, I'd just like to say an incredible thank you to the UP folks. I greatly appreciate, first of all, your time and attention yesterday and again today, and your willingness to come in and talk to us. So thank you. Green. Yeah.
There we go. I'm Kristen Neva, and I live right across the bridge on Quincy Hill in Franklin Township. And we have a problem on Quincy Hill with a recreational bear feeder. She's been feeding bears for a number of years, and last summer she posted on social media that she had 17 of them. So that's a lot of bear in our neighborhood, and they eat in the backyard right by her house, and they've lost their natural wariness of people. They have followed teenagers walking on the road. They have, come face to face with a mom with kids in strollers. They've huffed and pawed at a jogger. No one has gotten hurt. They've caused problems that are typical, like getting into fruit trees and garbage and things. But what's most concerning is the safety of residents having so many bears that don't fear humans in one area. And the DNR does not have the authority to regulate the recreational feeding of bear. I just found out this morning from talking to one of the commissioners that you used to, but you no longer do. And so that leaves it in the township's hands, which has been a bit of a journey to get something going with that, because there are currently no townships in the state of Michigan that have those ordinances. Townships aren't given the same authority as cities. So a lot of cities have ordinances, but townships do not yet, but we're heading in that direction with our lawyer who's talking with the DNR, and then also we've been talking with the the House, and the House lawyers think that the township has the authorities, so something will hopefully happen on that front. But I would still say it's not an ideal situation, because as a township, we have 800 and some households in our township, and we don't have a budget for a police force. We don't have a police force like cities do to manage problems like this, and so we'll be dependent upon our county sheriff. And our lawyer, I talked to him this morning, and he said, and it's not really his wheelhouse. So it would be much better if it could be something that was managed by DNR enforcement who specialize in wildlife, but that's not exactly up to you because you don't make the laws, but you do have influence with the media, and I would hope that you would use that influence, and with lawmakers. I mean, I've looked online and I see DNR officials making statements, do not feed the bears, it's not good for the bears, it's not good for people. So you make those statements, but if you could take it a step further and say, we have a problem here because it's not illegal behavior, perhaps that would help lawmakers be motivated to do something about it. My legislator recognizes the problem, but he, as well as one of the commissioners I was talking to this morning, said that there's not necessarily the political will in Lansing for the DNR to have more power in this, or to have more authority on this issue, and that they support the feeding of bear. Well, they don't have to live with it. And the DNR gets these reports. I know I've made them for, I think I first reported it 10 years ago when my cousin had the bears in her yard, and she was concerned about her children. But the DNR gets all these reports of these problems, and if they could make those public and say, hey, we have an issue here. We need a law like Wisconsin has that just outright prohibits the recreational feeding of bear, perhaps that would be helpful. In any case, the more voices, the better. I'm just one voice, and I think everyone up here, well, not everyone obviously, but most people up here agree that it's not a problem, but I guess people who live in the cities downstate, maybe they don't recognize that we're not just a wilderness up here. We're families with houses and children and people who are walking and have dogs, and there was just a bear attack in Wisconsin with a dog. I guess the bear got startled by the dog. So we don't want something like that to happen here. And while it wouldn't solve the root problem, increasing early season bear tags could help manage the population. Hunters in our neighborhood, they saw a lot of bear activity on the trail cameras before period 3, which was when they had their tags. And then once those tags were valid on September 25th, the bears quit coming during the day, and one hunter, he only saw a bear occasionally at night. Another neighbor who wanted to hunt was not able to get a tag this year. So it's something to consider to help manage the problem. Thank you.
Thank you. Our specialist is in the back, Cody Norton, and if you'd like to talk to him, he's available.
Thank you.
Yep. Next up is Nancy Warren.
Thank you. Today I'm speaking on behalf of the 90+% of Michigan residents who do not hunt or trap. Science is constantly evolving. We know that lead ammunition is the leading cause of death for bald and golden eagles. We know that wolves provide many ecological benefits and are minimal risk to livestock and dogs. For each of the last 10 years, less than a handful of the 1,000 UP farms have had a wolf conflict. We know that non-lethal measures are very effective in managing our wildlife conflicts. We know that an overpopulation of deer damage our forests and can transmit brain worm to the moose. We know that wildlife killing contests are not rooted in science. Science gives us the opportunity to correct wrongs, but only if we have a commission willing to change and make science-driven decisions rather than relying on tradition or opinions. The general public trusts that this commission is guided by science, but time and time again, that science has been ignored. Recreational feeding of deer is allowed near residents, which attracts predators. Michigan has archaic trapping laws, with animals allowed to suffer in the UP 48 hours. It's considered humane for a trapper to club an animal before stepping on its chest, breaking its windpipe, or crushing its ribs into its lungs. Once again, as we heard today, year-round coyote hunting is back on the table and rejecting all the ecological functions coyotes provide. Coyotes eat large numbers of rodents and rabbits, which indirectly transmit rabbit fever and Lyme's. Adam Bump, who's here today in a past presentation, said, and I quote, "Typically, over the long term and large-scale habitat management efforts are more effective and economically viable than predator control when managing deer and other prey species." He also said there's no indication that killing more coyotes will result in a measurable impact on desired outcomes. Of the 30 states that have bear hunting, Michigan is only one of 11 states that allows baiting and is among the few to allow the use of dogs to hunt bear. A Wisconsin study estimated that bait made up over 40% of the bear's diet. And we allow unlimited quantities of dog, cat food, fish, an array of bakery items, even though extensive research has shown baiting harms bears' nutrition. Research also suggests baiting shortens denning periods, boosts bear numbers above habitat capacities, maybe that's why Hancock's having an issue, can spread disease, and can boost raccoon numbers, which increases predation on ground nesting birds and turtle eggs. While chocolate was finally banned, xylitol, an artificial sweetener, can be purchased in volumes, sprinkled on baits, and is permitted even though we know it's deadly to wildcats and canines that visit the bait sites. Whether it's deer, bear, coyotes, wolves, or other wildlife, decisions by this commission are made to appease 6% of the population that hunts. This morning we heard about budget, but we didn't hear that publications such as the Wildlife Conservation and Management Funding in the U.S., the authors Smith and al. Contend that 95% of federal, 88% of nonprofit, and 94% of total funding for wildlife conservation and management comes from the non-hunting public. When members of the public speak before the commission, those whose beliefs align with the commission are often addressed by first name, engage in conversation, and sometimes their allotted 3-5 minutes extends to 10. Yet when a non-consumptive user speaks, at best we get a thank you, and sometimes we've even heard condescending remarks. I've submitted written comments many times providing scientific documentation with facts about wolf conflicts, predator-prey relationships, and other issues. I'm told my information will be shared with all commissioners, yet in the past 20-plus years that I've been submitting comments, only former Commissioner Rose and Baird have ever contacted me to discuss issues. One commissioner, in fact, when I called him, he actually hung up on me. Non-consumptive users are not asking for special treatment. We're seeking the same treatment afforded hunters and trappers, and it's my hope this commission, with its new members, will strive to rectify this inequity, but it's going to take a commission and agency willing to change. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy.
Thank you, Becky.
Marcy, you're up.
I want to first acknowledge the loss of renowned primatologist Dr. Jane Goodall and Lieutenant Colonel George Hardy, last of the esteemed Tuskegee Airmen. Wolves, foxes, and coyotes are the wild version of our own dogs. If, for example, someone's own canine were injured or worse in a trap or snare, which was set with malice of forethought, we'd call that animal cruelty. But when the victim is a wild one, it's not just condoned, but encouraged and deemed legal. If hypocrisy had an odor, this stinks. We have organizations whose members participate and apparently revel in the entire abuse process, from luring the unsuspected victim in to the lethal conclusion. We often hear complaints from the sport killing community that traditions are under threat and their heritage is being taken away. But if you take an unedited look at the whole killing heritage thing, and I'm not talking about deer camp here, I don't think it's the noble pursuit it's purported to be. I've also listened to anguished tales of hound losses to wolves, as recently occurred in Ackley and Elko, Wisconsin. Tragic as it is when any animal's life is cut short, it is often the case those dogs were set loose near rendezvous sites or known wolf areas. Why would you do that? Then be furious when something bad happens to Barkley. In all fairness, what would you do if your home were invaded and your young ones threatened? Exactly, you'd defend your own. Yet who gets blamed? Yeah, the wild ones, every time. I've spoken before of the urgent need for paradigm shift in wildlife policy because we have now an entrenched reductivism toward the non-humans that has no legitimate place in 21st century wildlife management. Plus, we have policy decisions being co-opted by proponents of the animals have zero right to bodily autonomy lie, as appears to be roiling the coyote conversations now. On top of all that, our wild ones are facing forest fires, increased pestilence, emerging pathogens, and since January 20th, unfortunately, vastly accelerated habitat loss, none of which did the wild ones cause. The dearth of regard for our wildlife is breathtaking and unwarranted. I relayed the following experience during Wolf Advisory Council time, but it's more relevant than ever now, so I'm going to tell it again. I lived in the Cascades near British Columbia years ago. One day, a magnificent beast stepped onto the trail about 50 feet ahead of me. I think we both were startled by each other as we stared. A loud bang shattered the moment, and I watched that beautiful elk drop to his knees, and the rest of him collapsed. I ran up, dropped to my knees, and watched his last breath exhale, the vapor hanging in the frigid air for seconds. I had heard of, but never witnessed, the phenomenon of green fire. I will never forget seeing the literal light of life leave those eyes and thinking, you didn't need to die like this. So take the kids out into nature. Teach those young, impressionable minds to respect the ones who live there. Show them the wild ones have families too, just like we do. To the NRC and to those sharing knowledge acquired in your respective fields, and to my fellow Michiganders who, like me, are here today to voice our convictions, know this: coexistence is not a quixotic pipe dream hatched by the antis. It's our future. Jane Goodall lived this ethos to her dying day. Everyone in this room could learn from her example. Commissioners, looking at you.
Thank you, Marcy. Mitchell Nelson.
Good afternoon, Commissioners, Chair Humphreys, Deputy Director Lott. It's great to meet you. My name is Mitchell Nelson. I'm the Michigan State Director for Humane World for Animals, formerly known as the Humane Society of the United States, and I look forward to stop having to say that soon. We're almost there. All right, so I'm going to talk about wolves again. A lot of this is stuff that we've shared before, that you've heard before, you've read before, but it needs to be reiterated. We know that it's very possible that wolves are going to get delisted at the federal level from the endangered species list sometime soon. And we just want to make sure that all the facts are here, that people have the right information, the right science, so that when decisions are made about wolves in the state, they reflect the views and values of all Michiganders, as well as the solid science that supports those views. So let me dive in here. As you all know, wolves were once all over Michigan, but they were wiped out from the Lower Peninsula by the 1930s and nearly wiped out the Upper Peninsula by the 1970s. Thanks to legal protections, wolves have made a slow recovery to the UP, walking in from Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Ontario. Today, the wolf population is stable and has been for more than a decade, since the brief 2013 wolf hunt. And in fact, since that wolf hunt, that was enough for Michiganders to know that they didn't want us to be hunting wolves to that extent. And the following year, in 2014, voters soundly rejected 2 laws classifying wolves as a game species. The public is not swayed in their support of wolves. In 2022, a survey conducted by the Remington Research Group, that's a bipartisan polling firm, found that 71% of surveyed Michiganders believe that the state officials should honor the decision of the state's voters in that 2014 general election to not open a wolf trophy hunting season and trapping season. In that same 2022 survey, Remington Research Group also found that more UP residents opposed a wolf trophy hunting season than supported it. And 50% of UPers surveyed agreed that state officials should honor that 2014 decision, compared to just 38% who disagreed. If you know anything about polling, these are substantial numbers. This is not a small margin here. And there are over, and Nancy just mentioned this, there are over 1,000 farms in the Upper Peninsula. There were 3 reported conflicts with livestock in all of 2024. 3. With support and with non-lethal measures, Michiganders have learned how to live with wolves in this state. And they also play a key part in keeping our ecosystems healthy and balanced. Like other carnivores, they tend to target vulnerable animals, many of whom researchers point out would have died anyway due to other stressors such as starvation and winter mortality. Research also suggests that wolves may be essential in fighting the spread of disease in deer, particularly chronic wasting disease. Wolves are a relatively unique species as they function in family units not unlike our own. A pair lead their young, and the pack works cooperatively to feed, protect, and raise the pups. Only about half of wolf pups survive into adulthood, and those who do may stay with their parents for several years before venturing out to find their own mate in their own territory. The pack defends their home territory from neighboring packs and others. They regulate themselves and each other according to the space and resources available. If left to their own devices, a pack can be led by the same pair of wolves for 5 to 10 years. These packs, rather than just individual animals, are wolves' biological units. Their ability to fill their vital ecological role depends on these units remaining intact and stable. Established, experienced packs can learn to live alongside livestock and can keep wandering young wolves out. Landowners can learn the habits of the resident packs and tailor their deterrence accordingly, rather than constantly dealing with newcomers from fractured packs. And as I mentioned, as the U.S. Congress debates removing federal protections for wolves without judicial review, I hope you will consider the benefits of a stable wolf population that we've been fortunate to enjoy here for the last decade plus. I hope you'll consider the values of all Michiganders for whom wildlife is held in public trust. Thank you for your time today. I'm going to keep coming up and talking about wolves. I'm going to keep coming up and talking about coyotes and making sure you're getting all the right information. If you have any questions about anything I've said today, I'm happy to provide citations. Thank you.
Thank you. Gary Gorniak?
That's an interesting guy to follow. Hello, NRC. I'm Gary Gorniak. I'm Vice President of the Upper Peninsula Sportsmen's Alliance. I'm President of the Straits Area Sportsmen's Club. I'm Vice President of the DNR's East Citizen Advisory Council. As you can see, I'm fairly well connected with the hunters and trappers across the Upper Peninsula, and I talk to them on a regular basis. I'm here to talk about the devastation of wolves due to wildlife, in particular deer. Nowhere in North America is the wolf more devastating to wildlife than it is in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. With the UP's proximity to the Great Lakes, our snow loads are extremely heavy, which gives the wolf extreme advantage over deer. Deer migrate to winter yarding areas, which concentrate large numbers of deer in small areas. Deer with their pointed hoofs and wolves with their large horns, paws, make deer easy prey for wolves. The UP of Michigan used to be the mecca of deer hunting and was once considered one of the most productive and attractive destinations for deer hunting. Not anymore. Since the wolf numbers have increased, deer numbers have plummeted. In the UP in 2001, we harvested over 72,000 deer. In 2023, we struggled to harvest 16,925. These low harvest numbers have seen a tremendous loss in revenue in U.S. businesses and have brought total frustration to the UP deer hunters and has caused a lot of animosity between hunters and the DNR, which leads to a lot of other problems. A few months ago, the DNR large carnivore expert was on statewide TV program and stated It was a myth that wolves have anything to do with low deer populations, which totally infuriated the UP sportsmen. We understand that the wolf is still listed as endangered, but it would be extremely helpful in a delisting process and in public opinion if the DNR actually stated the average number of wolves or the low along with the high, and also relate the devastation wolves are doing to the UP deer and moose population. You can't fix a problem unless you admit the problem, and we're not there yet. In a preview of what we can expect in 2025, a few weeks back, the Liberty Hunt was held statewide. Our deer harvest was 4,920. Of that number, the UP harvest was 270. You as wildlife managers have the responsibility to manage all wildlife responsibly. We as sportsmen of the UP love and respect nature and our true conservation. We stand ready to work with the DNR and the NRC to manage all wildlife responsibility. You need us as much as we need you. And so with that, thank you.
Thank you. George Lindquist.
Good afternoon, Commission. Great to see you all. Great to be speaking with you again here. So I always appreciate you coming up. I just wanted to bring this forward about the predator-prey study. It's, you know, I read a lot of studies over the years. I've been kind of a geek about this for about 30 years now. Deer, wolves, wildlife management. Anyway, so I've looked at a lot of different studies over the years, and I just wanted to, well, let me preface this by saying, you know, this UP predator-prey study, it's really got a ton of great information in it. It really does. I mean, there's points in there that I never knew, you know, like the average doe in the high snowfall zone has like, weighs like 15 pounds more than the average doe in the low snowfall zone. You know, with bigger animals that handle different weather. And so we have these huge differences. And so one thing that, you know, this slide that's been put around for several years now, I just wanted to point out that it's a slide that they put together on adult female survival. Well, so it shows that, and then it shows mortality. But what I wanted to know was just mortality, what those percentages are. And so the way they showed it, it's like 21% mortality, and they show, okay, of the total number of deer, there's 8.6 mortality. Well, if you look at 100% of mortality, it gives you entirely different numbers. And so that's the thing with a lot of studies, is you have to kind of look at what they're presenting and then ask your own questions, look at what these possibilities might be, or, you know, what they're not telling you. So when you look at this actual mortality, it works out to be, for wolves, 40% of adult doe mortality is from wolves. 40%. It's not 8.6% of adult mortality, it's 40%. So, you know, the slide shows it at 8.6, but when you look at 100% mortality, you get completely different numbers here. So, what's interesting too is they mentioned about starvation, disease, and other causes only being 3.2%. Well, that includes winter in that number. So it's like, well, wait a minute. They're telling me winter only has that. Couple of things here. When you look at it as as a whole, as 100% of mortality, it amounts to 15%. But then again, they're including this low snowfall zone in this. So if you really wanted to know mortality, more about mortality of our deer, which is, to me, that's their biggest concern here, is what the hell's killing our deer, we should be looking at what's happening in the mid-snowfall zone, what happened in the high snowfall zone as far as those numbers, because I'm thinking that they'll change. But, so it looks like harvest and vehicle collision, it's 10% of mortality. Coyote, they're saying 2.2, well, it works out to be 10%. And if you look at this unidentified cause, I've got a little write-up here that came from the factors limiting deer abundance in the Upper Peninsula write-up that was done. And if you look at that, they're saying the unidentified are canines, and they give a percentage to each one depending on what these other percentages are. So if you plug that into adult deer, it works out that coyotes get another coyotes get 3.6%, wolves get another 14%. So when you add that in on wolves, it comes to 54.4% of adult doe mortality is from wolves. So, I just feel like how information is presented, how you look at it, how you ask questions can make a big difference on what's there or what you can see. So I wanted to make that point, and feel free to get a hold of me. I'd be happy to talk to anybody about it.
Thank you, George. J.R. Richardson. I'm sorry, I haven't asked if there are any questions with any of these speakers. If there are, speak up. I'm used to not turning my head due to sunshine. JR, it's good to see you again.
Thanks. I should have parked closer. Is that part of my 5 minutes? I went to school at Michigan Tech, and when I was trying to park my truck, I remember why I hated it here. Well, good afternoon. It's my true pleasure to speak to you guys today. I'm J.R. Richardson. I was on the commission for 3 terms. I was appointed by 2 Democratic and 1 Republican governor. I was the chairman. So I've been in your shoes and walked a mile in your shoes. And to get me to come here out of the woods from hunting and fishing today was, I had no intention on coming, but when I have people like the UPSA, UP Whitetails, my club, the Onondaga Valley Sportsman's Club, and the Onondaga Valley Sportsman's Alliance call me on the phone because they were so outraged about antlerless deer hunting in high snowfall areas. They were beside themselves, so here I am. These folks, and the reason I would say this is because these folks were all strong supporters of the department and myself. And when they asked, what was I going to do, I've always had the utmost respect for the DNR and the NRC until they we start stepping out of line. I realize, and I've said this to the commissioners before, that it's hard to agree that, if you get 10 people in a room, you can't get them all to agree that deer are brown. So it's always a huge controversy. So, and the regulations that you guys come up with have consequences, and that, we should be, all look at the common goal of improving the resource and support the resources goal. We assisted in our time with the commission with the UP Habitat work group. We did the UP Habitat work grants, the drip grants, and the whole idea behind that was that, because it always irritated me that the only people who were ever getting grants, they had lawyers and staff writers, and they could, they could write the grants. And what we wanted is the common folk to be able to write a grant on the back of a piece of paper and get $10,000 or $15,000 to do the right thing. I think you guys, with you guys' support and Bill's support, Bill Scullin's support, we came a long ways. You know, we had the CACs, which Becky created and we all supported. It was a great idea. Timber Advisory Committee, Governor's Timber Summit, you know, these were big high-level things, you know. New rep orientation, so we'd just go with the new reps, you know, the senators and, you know, representatives when they came in, and we talked to them about what our concerns were, and that was all about funding, generally speaking. You know, UP reception, you guys went to that last night. We created things where I'd force my friends to cook whitefish and Italian sausage, and, you know, to be quite honest, I had 7 cases of beer for the one at the Porky's, and I went, because I thought that was enough for everybody, and I went there at 4 o'clock, and my buddies had drank the 7 cases of beer cooking, and they told me that I had to go get more. I was like, you gotta be kidding me. But anyways, that's not why I'm here. So, you know, at the end of the day, what I'm trying to say is all the good and created an atmosphere because we were trying to engage the sportsmen and the people of the state. And the reason I even go to this extent is that, you know, we're all partners. You can see the way we all get along, and, you know, I get along with the department, we get along with the regulators, we get along with the legislators. And because of that, when we did the last fee increase, we were there and we did that, and we got letters from all those people supporting the fee increase. And the reason we got that is because they respected what we were doing and how we were doing it and the way we engaged them. And we have to get back to that a little bit to get the department and the legislators and the NRC all to work together, because, you know, the goal is the resource. And, you know, I'll be specific about what I'm talking about. The dues, you know, taking does in high snowfall area. We worked hard to put a stop to this during my whole tenure on the commission. And we stopped it at every corner. We never tried to tell, you know, I'd always sit there when we were doing deer regulations or any regulations, fishing regulations, is that if I'm in your DMU or your DMU or downstate, I didn't know about it, you know, and I didn't pretend I knew about it, and I wouldn't try to influence the way it was. And when you start doing that, it skews, you know, there's not enough youpers on it as it is, no offense, but, you know, it skews it. And I would never go downstate and start telling you how to do the elk. You know, I listened to the science, we had to vote on it, but it'd be a cold day in heck before I'd ever, like, try to influence that sort of a decision. And, you know, and in my mind, and in fact, if you kill, you know, I lived up there all my life, and we lived in a high snowfall area. I go, 1 minute, here's my time. I'll just say it real quick. You kill does where I live, you kill that doe, and you kill all the does that'll ever come after it. And then if you back that up with 2 winters, 2 severe winters, it's over. And we did that, and it took us 15 years to recover it. So I would just ask you to please think about that regulation, because it's got dire consequences to the high snowfall area. And that's why we set those DMUs up like we did. So, did I go over my 5 minutes? I usually don't talk that much. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Coming up. Yeah.
Message heard. Thank you, JR. Floyd drops. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Floyd Drops. I'd like to speak to you today concerning underwater spearing fisheries order 219.26 and the amendment calling for expansion of the waters to allow spearing. A little background, I'm a lifelong fisherman. I serve on Upper Peninsula Sportsmen's Alliance Fishery Committee, the DNR UP Western Citizen Advisory Committee, the DNR Lake Superior Citizen Advisory Committee, and I also served for over a year working with a group to develop recommendations for spearing for fisheries order 219.26. In the mid-'80s, I became a certified open scuba water diver. My main goal was to become more familiar with the habitats of fish. I soon discovered that I could see more fish just snorkeling than using the bulky, noisy scuba gear. I'd like to offer my views and concerns on the issue. With a few exceptions, Until the last few years, underwater spearing has been allowed for taking a rough fish. Though you could say it is allowed legal means to take fish, it was limited to rough fish because the DNR and fishermen realized that it had the potential for over-harvest fish populations. Studies for the last few years have shown spearing is far more productive than that of the average fisherman. For this reason, spearing needs to be allowed only in areas where it is not detrimental to the fishery. There is a notion that this sport will not grow much, as only strong athletic swimmers will be able to attempt the sport. This notion is wrong. Most fish will let you get within 3 feet of them. Plenty of fish remain in weed beds 15 feet deep or less all year long. Anyone that swims and is in good general health could take up the sport. Just look at your friends who go to the Caribbean and after a few hours training, they're swimming with fish on reefs. In my opinion, the Michigan Fierce Fishing Association will not be happy until they are allowed the same rights as hook and line anglers. They have put forward proposals in recent past asking for as much. In our work group, there was talk of allowing the taking of all species, including sturgeon and muskies. They also wanted to be able to spear inland waters. DNR personnel flatly stated that inland lakes could not handle the pressure from underwater spearing. They would collapse the fishery. The Michigan Spearfishing Association put forward a proposal to allow to spear fish after dark. For safety's sake, they said they would need lighted diver down flags. Walleyes' eyes light up like white-tailed deer when they're under artificial light. To me, it kind of sounds like spotlighting deer, not very sportsmanlike. It should be noted that you lose about a half hour of daylight underwater morning and evening due to light refraction on the water. Spearing should stop 1/2 hour on the daylight side for the sake of safety. Pretty hard to see fish and other spears in the dark. Another concern is the shared use of water. Divers with a diver down flag are allowed a 200-foot radius around them where nobody else is supposed to interfere with them. That works out to about 2.88 acres. If you have a bunch of divers where they attach the flag to themselves and swim, 5 or 6 divers can take up 10, 15 acre area in no time. And I don't know if it's an own honey hole, rack pile, or anything else, they eliminate anybody else from fishing that area where both fishermen, you know, they might not like it, but they share the water with everybody. Michigan has, where I read it, it had 800,000 licensed anglers. I heard elsewhere that they had 1.2 million anglers, approximately. But underwater spearing, they allowed free license. They had 4,400 free licenses. And most of those free licenses, the people never used them. Kind of like they did the same thing for different things before, and everybody said, oh yeah, I'll take a free license. I think they did that for muskie fishing, and they said, oh yeah, well, we got all these muskie fishing. Well, that wasn't the case. So 1 million compared to maybe a few hundred or maybe 1,000 people spearing, you know, you got to outweigh the needs of the many compared to the needs of the few, in my opinion. So the reaction I get when I talk to other fishermen is that they're opposed to underwater spearing of game fish. They think that it's unethical and cheating. I'd like to also say that that hasn't been, no survey is done with the public, so that the public doesn't really know what's going on. So I think that more information needs to be done and brought to the public and find out where the public really is on this issue before it's expanded. And I recommend that you follow what the Fish Division has brought forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Good. Brian Rodgel?
Brian was not able to, he had to return to work. He wasn't able to.
Okay. All right. Cal Straub?
First, I'd like to thank the Commission for your time and consideration. I know it's been a long day baking in the sun here. My name is Cal Straub. I'm a lifelong hunter and fisherman, and because of that, I'm a passionate spearfisherman. The sport is the perfect marriage of everything we already know and love about our traditions of sportsmanship. I could do a 5-minute talk about spearfishing, probably more than that, frankly. However, through collaboration with the Michigan Spearfishing Association and the DNR's Underwater Spearfishing Working Group, I've already created educational content that covers spearfishing fundamentals that you may have seen. Today, I'm here to talk about legacy. I'm here to talk about making history. I'm here because today, and this isn't hyperbole, the proposed amendment to Fisheries Order 219 is the greatest chance to expand hunting and fishing access in the eastern U.S. we've seen so far this century. Michigan has 3,288 miles of coastline and holds more than 40,000 square miles of Great Lakes water within its borders. Michigan is the Great Lakes state, and it's fitting that it's leading the way to open new doors for outdoors people. Madam Chair and fellow commissioners, every natural resource manager in America walks in the footsteps of the giants of conservation. We know their names and their deeds. Gifford Pinchot, America's first forester. Aldo Leopold and his land ethic. We know Rachel Carson for her groundbreaking work at Silent Spring, and earlier, John Muir for his work as a writer and a naturalist. Despite their significant contributions to conservation and country, all of those previously mentioned pale in comparison to the father of American conservation, Theodore Roosevelt. Roosevelt established our vast public land system, including national wildlife refuges, 5 national parks, and his greatest achievement of all, our national forests, free to access and open to both recreational and economic use. All of these accomplishments boil down to this: the fundamental legacy of America's greatest conservationist is access. He opened America to the American public, and we revere him for it. Our country's waterways are in many ways our aquatic national forests and are managed for multiple use. Our forests are logged, our fish are commercially netted. Hunting guides can be found in the forest and charter captains on the water. And recreational hunters and fishers are found in abundance both on public land and public water. Spearfishers exist as members of the sporting community. We are deer hunters, we are bird hunters, we are anglers, and we have a strong commitment to conservation. The Michigan spearfishing community has spent the last 4 years collaborating with the DNR to collect harvest data. Data that shows unequivocally that spearfishing has the same catch-for-effort ratio as hook and line fishing. That is, despite some assumptions, spearfishing is no more effective a method of harvest than hook and line angling. In that light, it's important to note that in his own time, Teddy Roosevelt's actions were not recognized for the strokes of genius we now know them to be. Roosevelt's commitment to public access was widely considered to be radical and was wildly controversial, so much so that Congress itself stepped in to strip him of his power to create public land. Through the lens of history, we can reflect on Roosevelt's actions with gratitude. All this is to say that the proposed amendment, we have a chance to live up to the legacy of Roosevelt, to expand access in a way that sets the stage for a new generation of American outdoors people, to not just walk in the footsteps of giants, but to be the ones forging the path. Making history takes courage, it takes fortitude, it takes vision for the future. In the past, these were Roosevelt's traits. Now, they must be our own. I'd like to express my gratitude to be able to speak here today in support of Fisheries Amendment 21926. I hope to enjoy new spearfishing opportunities next year. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Cal. Shane Schuerman.
Welcome back. I'm an elder millennial, so I'll be doing 2 forms of media, bridging the gap between old and new. Good morning, Chair and members of the Natural Resources Commission. My name is Shane Shireman, and I am a spearfishing conservation advocate and resident of the great state of Wisconsin. Despite my appearance, I am not a Packer fan, nor have I ever played sports. For me, it's always been a life of the outdoors and hunting. I'm here today because I love Lake Michigan, I love the UP, and it's where I vacation. For me, spearfishing is my favorite summer sport, but my personal passion is conservation and wildlife advocacy. In Wisconsin, I serve on our state's Conservation Congress. I also serve the anglers of Wisconsin on the Warm Water Committee, and I serve the deer hunters in my county on our county's Deer Advisory Committee. My wife is really sick of me serving. I'm not saying that as speaking for the Wisconsin Conservation Congress or the Warm Water Committee. I only mention that to give an idea of my commitment to conservation. And my views are not an expression of the Wisconsin Conservation Congress. My life's passion include hunting, spearing, conservation, and food, as I am a militant consumptive user. From wild mushrooms to bear grease and everything in between, I advocate for it all. And so I'm here today to speak in strong support of expanding underwater spearfishing opportunities in Michigan's Great Lakes. In Wisconsin, underwater spearfishing remains severely limited, confined almost exclusively to rough fish like carp, suckers, and invasive species, but we do have the ability to spear panfish. Prized table fare like walleye, northern pike, and lake trout that thrive in our shared Great Lakes and waterways are off limits to spearos, a restriction rooted in decades of conservative policies from Wisconsin NRB and the culture of traditional anglers' aversion to something different. Despite the growing voices for relevancy and growing numbers of spearos within our state and nationwide, participation in outdoor sports seems to be diminishing. And yet, among the youth, spearfishing is continually growing, and we're here to voice that growing concern. Contrast Wisconsin with Michigan's forward-thinking Natural Resources Commission, which has embraced change since 2021 by legalizing regulated spearfishing for game fish in select Lake Michigan zones. Michigan's approach, bolstered by data showing no population declines under strict reporting and gear rules, demonstrate how innovative and balanced innovation can balance recreation, sustainability, drawing enthusiasts from afar and boosting tourism from border communities like Wisconsin. And that's precisely why I'm here today, from Wisconsin, to urge Michigan's NRC to approve this expansion. By opening these waters, you'll not only empower your residents with more inclusive angling, but also extend opportunities to neighbors like Wisconsin. Michigan can lead by example in the Midwest, fostering regional unity and improving that progressive management benefits all, spearos, anglers, conservationists, and ecosystems alike. Well, first, I wanted to personally commend the Natural Resources Commission for the visionary initiative and foresight in pioneering regulated underwater spearfishing as a modern, inclusive form of recreation. By thoughtfully integrating the selective harvest method into your fisheries, the Natural Resources Commission has demonstrated bold leadership in working with the spearfishing community, proving once again that Michigan remains at the forefront of science-driven conservation that benefits anglers and divers and the waters we all cherish. Expanded access would provide significant benefits to Michigan's recreational community, economy, and especially our ecosystems and environment. Underwater spearfishing is a highly selective method. We choose targets intentionally, resulting in low-impact hunts with zero bycatch and no risk of unintended mortality, and from catch and release practices such as mishandling or barrel training or other stress factors that can doom or release fish. This precision minimizes disruption to habitats, avoiding damage to sensitive underwater environments like reefs or spawning grounds, and ensures we are only harvesting what we need without broader ecological harm. Let's slow down a little bit. Moreover, the DNR have real allies, as spearos are dedicated conservationists at heart. I mean, look at Cal. Literally couldn't have said it better. With our culture, we are deeply guided by the principles of the modern land ethic. It's what brought us to this community. Our community emphasizes low-impact practices. This mindset drives us to prioritize the health of our waters above all. A standard our community is actively stewarding the environments during every outing. We collect litter and debris from shorelines and underwater, often sharing photos of our hauls alongside our catches to promote awareness of how much refuge is in our waters. Oh, sorry. Okay. All right. I can't leave those 5 minutes. You know, I sit over here in Wisconsin looking east, and man, it's just so great working in conservation, advocating for the residents of Wisconsin. And it's anything from catch and release to sizes to bag limits. It's really frustrating doing our job and just hitting deaf ears, and the bureaucracy just stops. But with you guys, I just gotta say hats off. You're actually listening to your constituents, and that's what it's all about. Thank you for this opportunity, and thank you for the potential for the access. Thank you.
Thank you, Shane. Riley Smith.
Well, good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Riley Smith. I'm the Vice President of the Michigan Spearfishing Association. I really had a speech planned on the way up here. I was like, you know what, I'll think of something to say. And I was driving up here, John called me and he's like, hey, it's late. I left at like 8 o'clock in Midland. I got up here at like 2 o'clock in the morning. He's like, watch out for the deer. There is no deer in the UP I don't have to watch out. Wouldn't you know, I just got past Christmas, Michigan. What runs out in front of me? Wolf. I'm like, holy crap, that's the first wolf I've seen in the UP, so that was pretty cool. Drive a little bit further. One little tiny deer runs out. But I did see a deer, so that was pretty cool. I just want to say how much fun and how much underwater spearfishing has changed. Really my views on Michigan. I spent a lot of time on the water before actually really diving in. I did do quite a bit of scuba diving. But like Floyd was saying, it's big, it's bulky, you're kind of limited as far as how mobile you go. With the free diving aspect, I can dive in an area, check it out, fish, get bored, look at the same shipwreck for an hour, I can hop in the boat, I can go check something else out. It has opened up so much other areas for me to expand, other areas for me to explore. I live in Midland, Saginaw Bay is right there, best walleye fishing in the state of Michigan. No arguments there. But I've never really fished the thumb. I've never really went up to alpina walleye fish. With spearfishing, it's pushed me to go explore those areas. And I still rod and reel fish. I'd probably say a little bit more now that I underwater spearfish. I fish more Lake Michigan. I usually just go over there for the salmon fishing. I've been going over there for walleye and bass and everything else as well. We were up in the UP up to Munising. We went up there for Cal's wedding. We dove pictured rocks, extremely beautiful. There's underwater caves you can dive under, check everything out. Just gorgeous. And we were able to get some fish trolling too. But with that, I'm going to try to keep it nice, short, sweet. It looks like you guys got a lot of comments. Any questions for me? No? All right.
Thank you.
I appreciate you guys very much.
Thank you, Riley. Jonathan Durka.
My apologies. Deputy Director, Madam Chair, and Commissioners, thank you once again for this opportunity to speak with you today. I really don't get a lot of opportunity to come up to Michigan and interact with some of these other stakeholder groups. So I actually really more or less just wanted to kind of talk about some of that data that was talked about at the September 11th meeting and kind of make sure everybody in Houghton and the Upper Peninsula is involved with some of that data so that they understand what we're asking for and why we're asking for it. So just kind of referring to the presentation that was delivered by Dr. Lucas Nathan, underwater spearfishing is permitted with some exceptions for non-game fish in all bodies of water. And when we expanded those opportunities in 2022 for the game fish, we removed nighttime diving, the use of artificial breathing apparatuses, and we instituted some boundaries around swimming areas, access areas for boats, egress and access points, and made sure that the placement of a diver down flag shall not restrict boater navigation. And with that, Michigan launched the first ever data collection for underwater spearfishing in fresh water. So Michigan really leading the way there to make sure that we are collecting data. Now, we recognize that the data is incomplete. Not everybody who got a license reported, and we suspect that because of that, not everybody, as Floyd mentioned, used those opportunities. But the people who did, it was approximately 186 people per year reported at least one trip, 60 people per year reported at least more than 2 trips with decreasing effort over time, as pointed out by the graph in that presentation, you know, roughly 2,400 hours and then going down to 1,600 and so on and so forth, and trips also going down. And the primary harvest was fish that we wanted to eat, walleye, and 70% of that fish came out of the, you know, the greatest freshwater fishery for walleye on planet Earth, out of Lake Huron. And only 10 people harvested most of those fish, which was 430 fish a year, and that came out to about 30 fish per angler, I believe is what it was, and low harvest of northern pike and lake trout. And with that, up until August, there was 0 reported conflicts with user areas like on pier heads, and you know, you can imagine how many fish or boats are on Saginaw Bay or above the Blue Water Bridge, and none of those areas had any issues, which as a small community, we can kind of see that with the greatest freshwater fishery on the planet, we can fit in and not cause any problems or conflicts throughout the years, and expanding these opportunities to portions of Lake Superior where you can really only spearfish 2 or 3 months, maybe 4 out of the year if you're really, really aggressive and okay with swimming in 40-degree water, will only continue that legacy of creating more options for people to stay out of each other's way. If you give me more options, if there's too many people in Grand Haven, I can go up to Muskegon or Whitehall and so on and so forth, and give people the opportunity to not conflict with one another. And I just want to also say that, as you can see, most of these guys are very nice and very polite, and they really don't want to have any negative conflicts or, you know, issues with people. We just want to be able to swim in the water, shoot a fish that we can enjoy to eat, take it, have it on the beach, share with our friends and family, and that's really what this is about. And we really do believe in ethical. I know we hear that a lot, but we don't want to harm fish that we're not going to do anything with. We don't want to just shoot a rough fish or bowfin and just say, look, I killed a fish. That's not what we're about. We want to do it. We want to do it just the way we should. Traditional method, kill to eat, that's all we really want to do. So I really hope that these opportunities can be expanded, and I just want to say thank you very much to the Commission to listening and giving us considerations, just like the Department of Natural Resources has done, and sitting down with us and bringing us all together and say what's important, how do we, you know, work through these, you know, whether they're misconceptions or different considerations. I just want to say thank you to everybody. This has been a very wonderful journey over the last 6 years, and I have, because of these opportunities, been to places that I never would have been and seen things I never would have seen and showed people things they probably never would have seen. And I just think that we can continue that, and I think it's the right thing to do. Now, I thank everybody in this commission and everybody in the department at the Fisheries Division that has made that opportunity possible. And just once again, thank you again for all being here and allowing this to happen.
Thank you, Jonathan. Brian Reynolds.
Oh, welcome to the UP. I think I talked to most of you. Pete, I didn't talk to you for very long, but I did say hello to you. Becky, same thing. Brandon, it's the first time I've met you, and welcome to the UP. I'll be talking to you. I'll be in your ear in the future, I guarantee that. You know, I had some really interesting conversations. Started with Shannon about wolves yesterday. Talked to Chad Stewart for a long time at the get-together last night about deer issues up here. And I finished with, I can't think of Bill's last name right now, but I talked to Sarah first, and then I talked to Bill after that. He's the resource officer, I think, for the UP. Anyways, so I had a lot of good conversations. The wolves, I I'm hoping they get off the endangered species list so they can be managed. We don't want to kill them all like some of these people think. We want to slaughter them all. That's far from the truth. We just want the numbers to be at reasonable levels, that's all. The other thing I wanted to say was I talked to Chad a lot about deer last night, and I'm going to tell you the same thing I told him. Right now, our deer level in the high snowfall zone is as low as I've seen it since I was a kid growing up and started deer hunting. I'm not exaggerating. I'm not trying to pull the wool over your eyes on this issue. I'm just telling you the facts. I talked to hunters in northern Lewis County, northern Schoolcraft, Elger, Marquette, eastern Baraga County, Houghton County, Keweenaw, Onondaga and Gogebic. They're all saying the same thing. They can't believe that they're going to let the bow hunter shoot after this deer in the deep snowfall zone. We just don't have the deer. This is the lowest the deer herd been, like I said, since I was a kid. Since my first year of hunting, my first couple of years of hunting. So I know that the deer regulations are set for this year, and I talked to Chad about this, and he said maybe they need to change a few things next year if they're going to allow any of that to happen. Of course, you guys have the final say in that. For 36 years, I've been dedicated to white-tailed deer in the Lake Superior watershed. And that's not going to change. But as the deer numbers steadily go down, we're going to lose more and more hunters. There's already camps for sale in some places. You go up on the Pashiki Grade north of Michigami, there's no deer. You go to the Three Lakes area down the highway here, there's no deer. And you got people in there that have had camps for generations, and they don't have anything to hunt anymore. There's no deer in their areas. Now, some of that is the few deer they do have leave because they migrate, but they're just even, you'd be hard pressed to find a deer in some of those areas right now. And then you get over to northern Lewis County, same thing. Northern Schoolcraft County, my brother-in-law hunted every day rifle season, every day muzzle loading season last year. He saw 3 deer. 3. So I mean, there's places in the UP here where we just don't, I told you before, you weren't on the commission then, Brandon, but we have deer deserts up here. There are no deer. And that's a scary thing. With the way the wolf population is and the winters can be, I mean, we're in trouble. I'm telling you right now. So I had a good conversation with Shannon, and Sarah and I talked about having these breakout zones and doing some work around these deer yards that we can find the state owns, or maybe Line's a really good outfit to work with. They're easy to work with, and I'm hoping Longyear is going to be easy to work with also in the future. A couple of things. We do not have an overpopulation of deer like one of the ladies said up here when she was giving her presentation. There might be an overabundance of deer in the southern UP, but up here in the northern UP, we don't have an abundance of deer, I can tell you that. And Stacy, I don't know how much PR goes out or Shannon about these meetings, but I didn't see anything in the local paper. I think I did see something on one of the news channels in Marquette, but I think you guys need to toot your horn a little bit more. I think we really, because these meetings in the UP, we used to get lots of people at these meetings. And there was quite a few here there today, but I think we could do a lot better. We could get a lot more people here. Of course, you probably don't want more people. You've got enough. You're going to get out of here late today, but thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Mike Taylor.
Commissioners and Shannon, I would like to thank Cal. He was spitting out names, Roosevelt and everybody else. Here in the UP, we spit out names like J.R., John, Madigan. Those are the people that, set us up for where we are today. My name is Mike Taylor. This is not my first NRC meeting. I'm a member of UP Whitetails, UPSA. a number of sportsmen's club, MUCC past board member. So I've been around the block one or two times. What I like to do is go a little, let's just take a little, Becky and I talked about this last night, take a little progression in time. Starting back in the 2000s early, we were fighting with the DNR. I mean, we were head to head. We were this far apart. Okay, at the end of when Becky left the DNR and JR was just coming on to the NRC, we got down to about right here. But JR and John brought us to here for the whole time because we worked together. When the department needed a fee increase on licenses, we were behind them 100%. If you'd have come to us and wanted to get that fee increase, we would have put lots of pressure on our members. And I'm speaking for probably 2,500 UP Whitetail members and 30,000 UPSA members. You know, we put that thing together and we got it done. Right now, you know where we are? Back to here. You know why? Because in May, you shoved down our throat one of the worst things that this hunting community has seen in a long time. We're gonna hunt does again in the northern snowfall, high snowfall zones. And John, I'm looking at you, yes. And John and I are friends. We share the same college that we got our education from. But I'm sitting up here and I'm being the principal and I'm grading everybody. Becky, you get a partial. You get a partial. Brandon, you get a pass. Dave does not get a pass. Peter does not get a pass. Jim Laporte does not get a pass, and John does not get a pass. I'm here to set a grade on you. You are failing the people of the Upper Peninsula. We love our deer hunting. We're passionate about it. And John, you know how some of the conversations that we've had, how passionate I am about it. I, in conversation with Becky last night, I want to bring this back to where we're closer together. We need to work together. We work with you, with the DNR on grants and stuff like that, because whenever somebody brings us in Marquette, brings us a grant that we can partner with, we're happy to do it, and we'll do it every time. But I'm telling you, by what you did in May, brought us back to here again. I don't want to be back there again. I spent too many years doing this, fighting with the DNR and fighting with the NRC. I want to be here. I want to be here. Not just, so that we're kissing cousins or anything like that, but I want to be here. So I thank you.
Thank you. Justin Tomei. You're over there.
Good afternoon, Commissioners, Shannon, Counselor. My name is Justin Tomei, representing Michigan United Conservation Clubs. I'm going to do a smattering of issues today. I'll speak very briefly on underwater spearfishing. You've already heard me say a couple times now what our convention passed this year, but I will say the amendment before you today represents a meaningful expansion of opportunity with some reasonable spatial closures to protect certain sensitive areas. So I think that is moving in the right direction, and I look forward to John actually calling me to go out this year to get out on the water. So that's it for spearfishing. I want to talk a little bit about turkeys as well. You saw Adam come up here today, and a couple of things that I want to highlight that he showed was, to Michigan turkey hunters, one of the least important things to them, at least of the issue surveyed, was actually harvesting a turkey. It scored the 3.0 out of the 5. You know, just being in the woods, having the opportunity to chase turkeys was what was important to those individuals. I would like to propose, and this kind of comes after, well, now 3 years of conversations with Adam, a potential expansion. And what I would propose to you today would be to add a new hunt code that would take effect, it would start the second week of May. So I think this year, the first, or 234 started May 3rd. And then in this scenario, May 17th, we would have a new hunt code start, open to anybody that wanted to hunt in Michigan, let them get a second turkey tag, just hunt for the remainder of May. I think what you're going to find is only those individuals that actually care deeply about harvesting a turkey are going to be participating in this season. Adam could not, and I wish he was here because I encourage you to talk to him about this. Adam couldn't say this was going to have any harm on the resource. It's just an opportunity for people to get out in the woods, to have some additional time turkey hunting. It is my favorite. If you put a gun to my head and said turkey or deer, I'm going turkey hunting all day. I love chasing birds, but I think that this represents kind of a meaningful, realistic, pragmatic approach that's not just carte blanche, not everybody gets a second turkey tag, it's not 2 bag limits. It's for those small number of individuals that want to hunt a little bit more in May. Give them a couple weeks. Everybody at that point will have had the opportunity to harvest their own bird. Nobody's getting a chance at 2 before anybody gets 1. We already have unlimited quotas during May and that first week of June. Theoretically, every person in Michigan could buy a tag if they wanted to. Obviously, that's an extreme example, but it just paints the picture that the few thousand additional tags generate a little extra revenue and give people extra opportunity in the woods. Lastly, one of the things of public speaking is know your audience. So since I'm here in front of UP folks, I know that the commission already kind of has that thought tree put in place, your decision tree about wolves at a time when they become delisted in an attempt to hasten the process of getting a hunt and trapping season going. I would just say, and I've spoken to a number of you about this already, that there's some of the things on that decision tree that we can tackle now. Obviously, we can't pick quotas and things like that right now because we don't know when the population will be delisted, what it'll look like at that time. But the things that we could tackle now are the area, which should be the entire UP, and the method and manner of take, which should include hunting and trapping. So seems like just a good time to say that, and it was a good night in Houghton, and appreciate the time.
Thank you. Well, commissioners and audience, that completes the 5-minute sign-ups, and we are now down to the 3-minute sign-ups. This is my list. All right. And first up is Joe Summers. Thank you for the big font.
Good afternoon, commissioners. Good afternoon, commission. Welcome to UP. Let's see. I'd like to start out that when I started hunting, I was 15 or 16, and I've been doing this for 55 years. When you went out in the woods, you're happy to find a deer track because the doe seasons are in effect. I don't know how many years, but I just don't want to see it again. So, that's all I got.
Thank you, Joe. Kurt Matthews. Kurt Matthews. Going once, going twice. All right, we're going to go on to Anne Marie Shanley, excuse me. Anne Marie. Okay, Mike Dishaw. Mike Dishaw. All right, Don Rickerschick. I probably am butchering that name. I apologize in advance here. Chuck Vitten. Thank you, Chuck.
Hello, and thank you for coming to our beautiful UP. And I'd have to, excuse me, agree with the gentleman that said about your meetings. You definitely need to do more for broadcasting that you're going to be here. I happen to see it on Facebook, which I normally don't even go on, but my wife said, hey, you know, there's a meeting coming up. So I would really, I don't know how you do it, but if you could somehow make it more known that you're going to be here. My couple concerns, and I know you don't have it in front of you, is on page 48 of the rule book, covering ground blinds. And my concern is, I think it's very confusing. I know the people that wrote it understand it thoroughly, but the reading part of it is sometimes, I guess, more difficult to understand. And my main concern is basically when it says about portable blinds must be removed at the end of each day's hunt, except you can see type 3 below. Then you go to type 3 below and it says constructed ground blinds. Well, a portable ground blind is not a constructed ground blind. And then it says to go on to either type 1 or type 2. So I guess basically what I'm trying to get at is it's very confusing as to if it would just be portable blinds and not go on to constructed blinds. And like I said, the wording is very confusing. And like I said, the people that wrote it obviously understand it and understand. So that was basically one concern. My other concern is the lack of being able to use a crossbow during the month of December. Again, there might be very logical reasons why, but I'm 75 years old and I can't pull my regular blind or bow back during the regular season, so I switched to a crossbow. And so I think it's very discriminatory to me as a hunter that I can't use a crossbow during the month of December. And if you wanted to put an age limit on it, put over 65 or whatever, I don't shoot hardly any deer anymore anyhow, even when I have the opportunity with a rifle. So anyways, it's just limiting my opportunities. So thank you. Great to have you be here. Have a great day.
Thank you, Chuck. Terry Weigel.
My name's Terry Weigel. It's the first time I've ever addressed this thing, so I'm glad everybody here. Thanks, commissioners. I'm with Brian Reynolds and that, and I've hunted and fished all my life, and I've trapped all my life, and I think I know the animals better than most people in here. I've hunted everything you can think of. And I think shooting the does is really bad, you know, because you shoot one big doe and you're going to take everyone out, you know, you're not going to make it. You shoot the old doe that's got 2 fawns, and she takes her fawns to the deer yards. She's not, and if she doesn't take them, they're not going to make them because the wolves are going to get them. Or if they do make it to the deer yards, compete with all the feed, they're just going to get, they're just get kicked around. They just won't get it, so they'll die of that. So I think you made a mistake by thinking to have a doe season like, you know, with Lakeshore watershed. I just would not like that, you know, and I think there's a lot of other people that feel the same way. That's about all. So thanks for a few minutes anyway, seconds. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. John Strom.
Welcome to the UP Commissioners. My name is John Strom. I'm just unhappy that you allow bow hunting in the North Lake Superior watershed, and hope you'd repeal it. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Jordan Hoover.
Green one?
Sure.
All right, we can start. Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to see everybody up here in God's country. Deputy Director, Chairwoman, Commissioners, thank you for coming, making the trip. I appreciate it. And I would like to strongly encourage you to please come here more often. We would like to see you. We'd like to communicate with you. And as was said earlier, close the gap. It's important to us. So, in the life of a white-tailed buck, maturation and growth are met with conflict and adversity at every bending corner. It takes a lot to go from that to that in God's country. There's a lot of difficulties, there's a lot of struggles, there's a lot of conflicts. But that's how growth happens. Growth is not often comfortable, it's not often easy, it's not painless. But nonetheless, it's absolutely necessary. You know, some of my fellow youthers spoke today in opposition of the go-with-the-bow regulation. I hear some of that opposition, and I also hear a lot of thanks. Venison is a kitchen table issue here in many of these communities, and the opportunity to put venison in the family freezer means a lot in these times. Do we have the deer we did in 1994? Well, of course not. But there's still a very huntable population of deer anywhere I go. And I hunt multiple counties across the Upper Peninsula, high snowfall zone, low snowfall zone, and I love it. It's a privilege. You know, something that we've forgotten is that a hunting license is not the purchase of an animal. It's the purchase of an opportunity. And what we do with that opportunity on an individual basis is entirely our own decision. I spend thousands of hours a year doing everything I can to put myself in a position to be successful because I love it. It's not a hobby, it's a way of life. And there are many like me here. Those who put in the time are successful year in and year out. You know, there's a sign just across the canal at a sporting goods store owned by one of my friends. I found it interesting. I wanted to share it with you. It reads, "Save a buck, tag a doe during archery season." Northwood Sporting Goods in Hancock. High snowfall zone. Not everyone opposes it, and there's passion on both sides. The science has never been in question. And with that, I will close my comments and encourage the Commission to continue on the trajectory that we're on of growth and change, because the UP depends on it. Thank you.
Thank you. Trish Marie.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. When I was coming up here, I told my friends why I was coming up here is because the NRC wants to reopen year-round coyote hunting. And my friend said, who would hunt a coyote? No, nobody eats coyotes. Their fur isn't worth anything, much less when they have puppies. And, you know, some people would call that ballot box biology. But what are the coyote resolutions, including today's, which claim that coyotes must be hunted because they're overabundant? Where's the science? The DNR themselves said we have no idea how many coyotes there are. We've never counted them. It's like saying, how long is a string? Well, you got to measure to know how long a string is. I'm glad today's resolution says that the coyotes people kill for fun or nothing or whatever must be treated respectfully once they are dead. It's a pity you can't extend that respect to the living wild creature and their puppies while they're alive. Coyote killing contests, killing coyotes while they have dependent puppies. This is why hunting as a whole is losing popularity with the wide general public, most of whom do not hunt. We can do better, and we should do better. And Aldo Leopold would be rolling in his grave to witness a coyote killing contest, or killing predators while they have dependent babies, or really at any time at all, because in the end he was pretty against that. So that is all I have to say. Oh, one last thing. Yes, let's keep our wolves protected. People love wolves. They're popular. Now that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Brian Tanner.
Thanks, first off, for making the drive up here. It seems like this might be every meeting for you guys. You're walking into the Lions Den sometimes. But I didn't plan on speaking until I heard others speak and thought I'd get myself up here. Related to some of the wolf comments and anti-hunting comments I heard, I noticed one of them didn't even give the respect of sticking around to hear the people's opinions and just decided to leave. First off, I'd like to start with some flattery and thank you guys. Maybe going against some of the current, but for passing the antlerless thing, I agree with what the previous gentleman said about it being an opportunity. And I would think that if we do find that there is a lot of antlerless harvest this next year, we use that data to then alter that to see how it might impact the herd. I'd also like to thank you for changing the Fisher Martin license so that you could just capture 2 of whatever one. And also the defensive trapping, where a lot of states have really kind of gone the other way under public pressure, whereas I don't think that's scientific. First off, I'm going to touch on a few things here. One is, I think the Standard Rock and Big Reef limit one was on the agenda. I think it got moved. I just want to give my support for that 1 fish limit for that. I do think Michigan's fisheries are a huge deal across the U.S. And like the West, how they treat big game, I think that should be instituted to how we treat fisheries, and that it should be a trophy thing or a really well or strictly managed thing for those opportunities that are limited, like Standard Rock fishery. I wanted to also support those who did talk about the impacts of wolves. I know that if you look at Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, their wolf problems they're having with their elk and deer, and now looking at Colorado, their reintroduction of wolves and how that's going. I disagree with the other gentleman who said that they don't mess with livestock, animals, and all of that. That's not true, given what we're seeing in Colorado lately. And anecdotally, I do a lot of trapping about 30 minutes away from here, and last year, as I was setting traps looking also for what was around, there may have been two deer prints to 15 wolf tracks in the area. And so it is a problem. I know they're federally listed. We can only do so much. I understand that. One of the things I'd like to also touch on is in the high snowfall areas, the beaver trapping season ends, I believe it's April 30th. I would like if the commission consider extending that to May 15th in these high snowfall areas. With the low price of fur, it's a lower trapper participation, and I know there's a big increase in beavers in this area. And because of our high snowfall, the conditions to trap in the spring are none. So to get that extended out a little further might help that situation, which helps the counties and the roads and all of that. But thank you for your time.
Thank you. Bob Jones.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. It is nice to be up here in the UP, and I agree. I'd like to come up here a couple more times a year. It's nice up here. As most of you guys know, I'm currently president of the Michigan Bowhunters Association. I also belong to the Michigan Longbow Association, Michigan Traditional Bowhunters, Professional Bowhunters Society, the Pope and Young Club, and I'm in constant contact with different archery organizations around the country year-round. And a lot of the challenges that we have are similar, but the same as other areas, you know. And as part of the DMI last year and this year's Deer Advisory Team, I spent countless hours on the phone trying to get it right. It was really important for me that any vote that I made at those meetings, that I got the science right. And in my opinion, the commission did exactly what they should have done last year in May. The science was clear on what's happening with the deer herd in the Upper Peninsula. And doe with a bow, we're 9 days into the season now, and these guys are already panicking about what might happen to the deer herd. It's not going to be the end of the deer in the Upper Peninsula by harvesting some does. Our buck-to-doe ratio is so out of skew in many areas of the UP. I was just showing a picture today that was taken on a trail cam last week of a spotted fawn still nursing. That fawn has no chance of making it. It just doesn't, you know, and that's the reality of some of the management practices. Anytime that you have a sustainable, huntable population of deer anywhere, it's necessary to have some antlerless harvest in there to have a more balanced sex ratio. Having our bucks breed for 3 months going into the winter in the Upper Peninsula is just not healthy. And those fawns just don't make it the following year. So I commend you guys for the decision that you made in May. It was a tough call. I know that, and I feel very bad for the guys that live and hunt up in the UP here and call it home. As I've said before, it's probably going to get worse before it gets better until we can turn habitat issues around and get some of the other things straightened around. But I commend the commission for the decision you made in May, and thank you for it.
Thank you, Bob. Travis White.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Thank you very much for taking some time today, hearing our comments, and spending some of this time inside on such a great day. My name's Travis White. I'm a research engineer here at Michigan Tech. I'm also a licensed captain and do charter fishing. I've done so for 17 years. During the past 15 of which I have pursued passionately lake trout, particularly in our offshore environments. I want to express my strong support for Fisheries Order 253, which pertains to daily possession limits being reduced at Standard Rock and Big Reef, and note that I also see merit in the proposed amendment to reduce from a 2 DPL to a 1 daily possession limit. At yesterday's Lake Superior Fisheries Citizen Advisory Committee meeting, we heard a presentation from Sean Sitar of Michigan DNR, and he presented some data showing what appears to be a decline in lake trout size structure, specifically at Big Reef, following increases in daily possession limit that occurred in 2010 from 3 fish to 5 fish. Before that change, surveys regularly captured master angler class fish greater than 34 inches at this site, as well as many fish exceeding 40 inches, which is considered a world-class trophy lake trout. These are fish that are also found at Standard Rock even presently. In the most recent survey data that he shared, including this summer in 2025, only a few fish were found or captured during that survey that reached the 34-inch master angler benchmark, and none were captured that met the 40-inch benchmark that was previously seen in this location. This is a striking contraction in the size structure for this location in a short time span, and it's notable given the slow-growing and long life cycle of these fish. We don't have a comparable complete data set over the same time period for Standard Rock due to less frequent sampling in this location. It's more difficult to access. However, a similar trend likely exists given the same influences with the change in daily possession from 3 to 5. We also have strong anecdotes from charters and passionate fishermen that there are fewer larger fish being caught there in recent years. I believe that these proposed reductions in daily possession will help the situation. Sean explained that if we do see a reduced possession limit, such as proposed, it would take time, perhaps many decades, to see any sort of increase in fish quality and size structure at these locations. However, this would certainly have an immediate effect in preserving the current size and age structure of these fisheries. Combined with the slow growth rate and mounting pressures due to social media, technology, and improved forecasting, these fisheries are facing a tremendous amount of pressure now that did not exist previously. I would also like to note that over 80% of Michigan responded to a survey by the DNR several years ago that they supported more conservative fisheries regulations at these reefs, recognizing the rarity and value of these sites as part of Michigan's fishing heritage. I'd like to commend you all for taking this topic up now and considering the science that we do have, as well as the reality of how valuable these fisheries are in their current form to Michigan. Thank you.
Thank you. That completes the public appearances for today. It is 2:56. Commissioners, do you need a short break before we move in? Okay, let's take a 10-minute break, and we will come back at, we'll round up, about 3:10. It is 3:09. We're actually back a minute early. For the director's matters, we have a proposed oil and gas lease auction and also a number of land transactions. Is it your understanding the director is going to sign all of those? Yes. Okay, that was quick. All right, we have for information this month, we have the spring turkey hunting regulations. We can look forward to spring turkey hunting next, in the days ahead. Under old business, we have the fisheries order on fish disease control for the director's authority. I presume it's his intent to sign it? Yes, it is. All right. For commission action today, we have a number of fisheries orders, and we have two of these fisheries orders that it's our intent to hold over for a month. And so I take a motion for fisheries order 206.26 and fisheries order 219.25. Oh, I need my reading glasses. Sorry, you guys. 26, excuse me. I take a motion to table both of those orders.
I move that we table both those orders.
For 1 month.
For 1 month.
Yep, second.
All right. Any discussion? I will make a note that we decided to table these orders in order to have more discussion on them with stakeholders and be able to make sure that we're doing the right thing as we move forward. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Tabling those orders is approved. We're going to move down to Fisheries Order 21026, designated trout streams. Do I have a motion to move that forward?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion or questions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the same. The order passes. All right. We are going to move on to Fisheries Order 253.26. This is Great Lakes and Connecting Waters Trout and Salmon Regulations. Do I have a motion on this order?
So moved.
Question.
Do we have a proposed amendment on the 253.26 from Commissioner Nyberg or no?
He provided the wording for a proposed amendment that he intended to make. If anybody else would like to make that amendment, they are welcome to do so.
Otherwise, we're just voting on the order as laid out.
Correct.
I think you would like to, I thought you guys talked about tabling it, or you mentioned.
I move to table it till next month.
Yeah, second.
Okay. Did everybody hear that?
Yes, sir.
Table that till next month. Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the same. That order is tabled. Okay, we're down to Fisheries Order 254.25. This is Inland Lake Trout and Salmon Regulations. Do we need a minute to refresh ourselves in terms of how we've been referring to this one?
It's removing some and adding some protections to certain foods.
Yes.
I think I read yesterday.
Yep. We're missing a wall on that one.
This is the walleye one?
No, we're missing.
We're missing the walleye one.
Do we? I have to refer to my. Randy, help us out. Did we miss one of these orders?
Table that, 206.
206 table includes the walleye.
Oh, it includes the walleye one. Excuse me. Thank you for the refreshing. All right. So this is our trout and salmon regulations. Is everybody clear on it?
Mm-hmm.
You don't need a refresher? Okay. Do I have a motion or?
So moved. Second.
Okay. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Those opposed, the same. All right, it passes. We'll now have committee reports. Actually, we're just going to have one committee report because our chairman for Fisheries Committee, unless somebody else would like to make it, is not here. I failed to mention before, Commissioner Anthony is sick, unfortunately, sends his apologies that he's not here today. But with that, Commissioner Walters.
Yes, the Wildlife Committee met on Monday with Chief Thompson and staff to discuss migratory birds. It was a lively discussion, very well, good discussion on options and opportunities that the Commission may want to consider in the future. So I think continuing those discussions with staff and the Chief will be warranted.
Any questions? I don't think we have. Was anybody here for the fisheries?
Yeah, I was.
Would you like to give some short
just had a good discussion on different proposed orders that were listed under old business. A lot of discussion on the proposed slot issue, measurements, I guess, and it was an informative conversation.
All right, thank you. We'll move on down to commissioner reports, and we'll start with Commissioner Walters.
A lot of discussion with folks calling me and myself calling others in regards to either the current regulations we just discussed or future regulations that we will be discussing. I highly encourage those conversations, and I'm very open to having those candid conversations. So if anyone wishes to speak about any fish or wildlife discussions, I'm very open to that, and I make myself very available. I will say that in August, I lost a dog, and he was my best hunting dog. That's all. Thank you.
Nothing to report.
Thank you, Commissioner Erdley. Commissioner Freeland?
The only thing I have to report is, and I'm probably the only nerd that gets off on this, but my family and I put in a white maple for the Michigan biggest tree hunt, and so we were notified that our tree won. Now, I'm not sure if it's for the county, if it's statewide, which I'm sure it's not. It'd be pretty darn cool if it was. We find out, I think next weekend, exactly what that tree won, and that's the 16th Michigan Big Tree Hunt, and I got one more big white pine somewhere else for the next tree hunt. So anyways, just nerding out a little bit. Congratulations.
Very fun. Very fun. Would you like to give any reports, Shannon? Deputy Director?
I just wanted to say thanks again for having us here, and the Christmas tree this year for the Capitol is coming from the UP again, so congrats on that.
Awesome. It's been a busy month for me. I was in DC at the time of our last commission meeting. It was interesting to me, the Congressional Sportsmen's Foundation, I was there for the board meeting, but the annual dinner, we had more bipartisan support from Congress at that dinner than we've had in decades. It was tremendous, and they all talked about working in a bipartisan manner. So hopefully we see evidence of that in the days ahead. So far in the budget, it hasn't panned out, but let's hope we can resolve the budget and move forward. Had a lot of calls, obviously, on fish regs this year, and I also had calls on the Berry State Game Area and bicycle races during the youth hunt. Had a few calls on youth hunt, both those who really like the youth hunt and really don't like the youth hunt. And I call it the youth hunt, but really the Liberty hunt. So it's been interesting. The last thing I will say is this. I hope in the days ahead that we can move forward and, as I said, bring us closer together as we work on some of these UP deer issues, as well as other UP issues. It's hard. Sometimes we can disagree and not be disagreeable, but I think the most important part is that we listen to one another and that we have a respectful process. So in the days ahead, you have my support that we need to work together, and I know the commissioners have voiced that also. So I look forward to returning to UP and working on that as we move forward. And with that, I would call a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We stand adjourned at 3.